Great.
Floor is yours.
Wonderful. So I'm here from Indico Data. My name is Slater Victoroff. I'm the CTO and founder. And I'm here to talk to you today about the unstructured imperative. For many of you, I'm sure this is old and boring, but hopefully this is still interesting news to a lot of people. The vast majority of all data in the enterprise is unstructured. This number is actually a little bit old. The more modern numbers show that this number is actually growing even faster than structured data. So today it's up to about 90% of all enterprise data is unstructured. But when you look at traditional technologies, they're all completely focused on the structured data side of the platform, right? And when you look at the unstructured side, right, when you look at long-form content, when you look at complex documents, there's a real dearth of technologies that will allow you to attack these use cases. That's where we fit in. Right. This is really the problem that we were born to solve, Indico Data. The specific areas that we focus on are the automation, analysis, and application of unstructured data. I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a bit. And just to give you a sense of the kinds of structured data platforms that we're talking about plugging into, right? You see, again, along these same lines, right? Automation with Power Automate and Blue Prism and UiPath, analysis, right? And Tableau, right? Application around with Looker, right? And Salesforce Lightning. So that gives you a sense of the ecosystem that we really play in. And now I want to give you a sense of exactly why it is that we're able to tackle these unstructured use cases in a way that up until a couple of years ago has been effectively impossible. So I want to start a little bit by drawing out an architecture really of how we see this space and explain really what I mean by unstructured and really what I mean by automation, analysis, and application. So here, if we look at this graphic over on the right, you'll see the same application layer. And these are the applications that I think everyone is already familiar with. These are the bread and butter for everything in the enterprise that you are in, every day nowadays. Now, on top of that, what we've realized is that while these platforms are really, really powerful, again, they're not really made for unstructured data. And so there is a layer of services that we call Indico Ignite. This is something that either we're providing directly or we've got a series of vendors and ISVs that will provide this as well. And really, these are organizations that will own the end-to-end process of getting whatever unstructured data processes you're trying to work on integrated into these downstream platforms, because that often takes a good amount. I'll talk about the technology more in a little bit, but we use a composite AI layer that combines several different bleeding edge AI technologies to tackle these use cases in an extremely effective way. And now I want to talk a little bit about our three main classes of use cases. Automation gets a huge amount of buzz today, right? I think that this is very, very common, especially on the RPA space. But what a lot of people miss is that when you look at unstructured data and intelligent automation, there's a huge number of companies that can deal with, rigid, maybe XY forms and those very traditional types. But when you look at the broader space of image and rich text documents and complex tables, it's very, very difficult. So we slot in there and help to automate really the whole swath of document-based and image and text-based use cases. We can then talk about analysis, which encompasses things like neural search, which really can help power research across very domain-specific corpora. And one of the things that's really important to note here about Indico is when we're talking about analysis, we're not saying that whatever your specific use case is, we know exactly what all the correct answers are. Our platform is actually really designed to put the power in your hands as an end user. So the idea is that you have all of the bleeding edge tools in AI to drive analysis the way that you think it ought to be done on this data. And these techniques are usually very, very difficult to work with, and we make it accessible for a non-technical business unit. Finally, talking about applications, and this is a place where you can actually start to reimagine a lot of the legacy enterprise applications that you have. Salesforce Lightning, I think, is a classic example where when the rows in your lead scoring don't have to be totally precise structured data, right? When you've got a huge amount of unstructured communication that you can start to leverage, you can actually start to reimagine the way that those applications hang together. So I want to talk quickly now about our technology. A lot of people have been trying to solve this unstructured problem for an extremely long time. What is it that we've actually put together that allows you to get after it in a more effective way? The first thing that I want to talk about is fine-tuning and transfer learning. This allows you to really rapidly create state-of-the-art ML models, get into production with just a couple hundred examples. We actually have business users without any technical background that have maybe done a couple of weeks in Code Academy, going head to head with teams of PhD data scientists and winning and producing in weeks what it would take them months or person years to produce. Second, and I mentioned this briefly already, right? We have a NoCode UI for the business, right? This encompasses several really key aspects, but our goal really is that, we've bought in big to the machine teaching paradigm. And our question is, how can we get the expertise out of your line of business SME as effectively as possible? So you've got human in the loop, you've got, one of the best human in the loop interfaces in the enterprise, right? But you also have these very powerful model labeling interfaces, as well as model explainability that makes sure you can get all of this out into production in a way that's compliant and transparent. Finally, I want to talk about the last piece, and we use a technique here called Multimodal Fusion, if anyone wants to go and Google that afterwards. But what that allows us to do, in effect, is handle a massive amount of variability across the enterprise. So we're the only organization out there, when you tell us that you've got documents that you want to automate, we're not going to nitpick and say, oh, well, if you've got a particular template that we can do this template, and that'll be 5% of your documents, and then these 10 templates, right? It's going to take another $2 million for us to get after that. No, by using this modern deep learning technology, and folks can ask questions, or we can talk more after the presentation about this, we're able to solve the whole swath of use cases across emails to pure image use cases, to insurance claims, to long form contracts and legal documents, pure images and supply chain use cases, and even invoices and payment processing. So you can handle all of that with one platform, and that's really a key innovation that we're bringing to the market. End to end, right? What does this get you? Traditionally, getting after these unstructured use cases, incredibly expensive, very, very low success rate. In fact, an 11% success rate if you're actually talking about projects that get into production and then deliver the ROI that you believe they were going to deliver at the start. By contrast, we have a 97% success rate, right? This comes from our customers. We've got tons of testimonials. You can look at the website. But when you follow the Indico process and when you use our technology, you get into production with an extremely high rate of success. And it allows you to get after many more use cases than you could get after otherwise, because it really, really reduces the opportunity cost. Just to throw out a couple of very specific use cases, right, to get your head sort of swirling about the kinds of things that we can do very easily. These are a few different verticals that we focus on. And then to put some real numbers behind that and real customer names behind this, right? So these are public customers, right? And these are real results that we've delivered to all of them in production. You see faster deal turnarounds that add to the top line, right? You see a reduction in required capacity for processing that improves the bottom line. So really all across the business, you're seeing that this helps these massive Fortune 500 customers, right, just work better. What we're here for today, fundamentally customers, right? We're growing. We're probably a little bit later stage than some of the other companies around here. So we're out in production with Fortune 500 customers, and we're looking for more. We are also interested in going into the federal business, a little bit more than we have. It's not that we have a huge amount of research or grants that we need. It's more that we understand that the federal government has a unique set of requirements, and someone who's interested in helping us take a pretty mature commercial technology and bring it over to the federal space. And finally, any technology partners, SIs, especially with folks with expertise in RPA or automation. We've got a really robust partner ecosystem and always looking for more. And that's my time.
Awesome. Thank you, Slater. Opening up for questions. Adi, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm trying to understand who's your user in these organizations.
Absolutely. So traditionally, when you look at these applications in an enterprise, there's three main personas that you want to talk about. There's the subject matter expert. This is the person that's handling the documents today. Think about this as the lawyer, right? Or even someone in an offshore BPO. There's the process owner, right? That's typically that person's manager, right? They have a really deep need for analytics and intelligence around how effectively this is working, right? And there's also an IT user, right? They have a need for a really comprehensive set of APIs that will help them integrate this into all of the applications that they need. So those are the three main stakeholders that we're really interacting with. Enterprise is complicated, so there are other folks, but I would say that we have very dedicated functionality for each of those three users.
So you don't work with the organization's data science team?
So we don't require the involvement of a data science team. That's one of the big advantages, is that we actually give you an extremely high quality without requiring their involvement. Where data scientists are interested in functioning as sort of architects, one of the things that is also a bit tricky is that unstructured data tends to require a very rarefied set of techniques that most data science teams actually aren't well equipped to handle. So from our perspective, if a data science team happens to function in that sort of IT persona and is interested in helping coordinate an architect, that's where we'll work with the data science team. But in a lot of cases, the data science team might just be vetting our approach, making sure the technology is kind of state of the art, but they're not required in the day-to-day use of this project.
So when you come to these organizations, have they already been using some other product similar to yours, or not at all?
That is rarely the case. There's sometimes a legacy vendor. I will say that a small number of use cases people have often tried to get after where they have really specific forms, but I would say that across the whole enterprise, that might be 5% of their use cases they've got a legacy provider for. And most of the things that we're really talking about, these are humans processing them, right? It's really a question of getting more transparency into a very kind of black boxy human process. So
do these any enterprises or customers compare you with alternative solutions? Do any benchmarking?
Yeah, I would say extremely extensively. There are a lot of people in the IDP space, but most of them sell sort of the same technology. In fact, one of our biggest customers on that previous slide, PNC, they actually benchmarked us against 26 separate vendors in the space. But what we always say is the more people you benchmark us against, the better we're going to look. But again, at the end of the day, one of the really key things with our platform is that the technology sort of behind the scenes is constantly updating to the academic state of the art. So, every quarter you're actually getting significantly improved models. And one of the things that's really key for people to understand is this is a platform that will, pound for pound, effort for effort, always give you a better model than any other solution. But, a traditional offering, they're not actually going to let you build your own model. They're going to show up with an invoice model. And if you don't like it, too bad, right? So, it's a very different kind of process with us where, you're building your own invoice model. It's actually faster than even just the evaluation of another invoice model. And then you're going to get significantly higher accuracy. And then it'll also continue to grow faster in an ongoing way.
Okay, last question is McKinney.
Slater, on that note, I do have a question about what you have that is proprietary and what could stop a Salesforce or any of the other competitors that you mentioned before from just copying what you're doing and being a bigger, entity, taking over. Yeah,
so I wouldn't actually highlight any of the people before as competitors, really. I think the thing that is fundamentally a saving grace, and I'm happy to talk with this in more detail with anyone, is that the technology that we're implementing is actually so kind of rarefied and difficult that it takes sort of years of effort to get this out into production. And that is not necessarily a question of dollars that you throw at this, because when we talk about the people that we're competing against, folks that use the similar technology, and it's a very, very small number of companies, right? This is Google, this is Facebook. They've already sunk the billions of dollars into it, right? The thing is that they desire to adopt this technology in a fundamentally different way from us. Their goal is to sort of keep this all oriented around a small number of totally internal use cases. And they actually very much don't want to build a platform that will then help everyone do the same thing that they're doing. So that's the way I would kind of frame it, right? It's more strategic in that we have a huge benefit of having more value in empowering our customers to do this than sort of holding that information to ourselves. And it's just extremely hard.